Hey everyone, welcome to Sunrise Extra on a Monday. How are you guys doing? Grab a cup of coffee, sit down, and chat with us. We want to know how you guys are doing. See, Rod's got his cup of coffee. I like that. Drew is near the KGW kitchen. He could get some. He's got his seltzer water. That's
seltzer water.
Seltzer water.
1932.
Bubbly water. That's what it is. Seltzer water, right?
Sparkling water. Soleil from Safeway. Thank you.
Yes. It has been, what a weekend. Sadly, we had a person shot and killed in downtown Portland after 90 plus nights of protests and demonstrations. Stay tuned for details on that. We don't have anything new at this, point of the morning for you on names or suspects or anything like that. But we just wanted to check in and see how you guys are doing. Because it's just been a time, right?
There's a bunch of different ways people can check in with us this morning. If you're watching us on the KGW Facebook page, you can obviously chime in there, and we usually monitor that. We seem to generate the most comments there. You can also text us. That text number is always up on the screen, 503-226-5088, and I have this laptop in front of me so I can monitor those text responses, Brenda, Nina, and Rod.
Yeah, I've been off work a few days, and I've been disheartened to follow all the news that's been happening. I mean, every time I turn on either the national news or the local news, Portland is making headlines for all the wrong reasons. And then this death over the weekend, I just felt like this. I mean, who could not see that coming? The escalation, it just kept going up and ratcheting up and ratcheting up. And people have been saying it, and now we see the governor and we see Mayor Wheeler and the police chief talking about OSP coming back into the city and other agencies around the metro area. But why does it take somebody losing their life before we take a renewed approach that everybody has to be back on board? Because it cannot continue like this. It makes me sick. It makes me sad.
And it remains to be seen, right, if things will really change or not after Saturday. I mean, I think the same way you do in terms of, geez, did it take a death to change things? Well, we don't even know if things have changed yet. And when we have a situation like we've had in the city for the last 3+ months, you keep thinking to yourself, eventually, the two sides are going to have to come together to make things better. And I feel like now, 3 months into this, the two sides have never been further apart.
I really wonder who the two sides are. Well, I know on the face of it, but I have often asked people that I know, people that a lot of people come up and talk to me, just in many different situations. I'm like, who are the protesters exactly now? Because we've had members of the Black community, religious leaders, many, many others, state senators, lawmakers of other sorts. It's like, you're not helping the Black community doing what you're doing. Stop the violence in downtown Portland. You're distracting from the message. One person told me that he believed, and knew some of them actually, that the people down there just didn't give a you-know-what. And they were like, they're looking at the system, like we'll break a window to a bank or we'll do something else. We don't care. We may loot something. We may take it. We won't do small businesses, but, it's a symbol of a system that they don't like. So they're just down there raising hell. I mean, it's just crazy to think. But my question is, who are exactly the protesters down there now? And what are they protesting?
Right. Even when I said the statement, the two sides, as I was saying it out loud, I thought to myself the same thing you did. Who are the two sides? There are the two sides that I know are nowhere near on the same page would be when it comes to a political talk, Republicans versus Democrats. Now,
I think it's almost four. It's four now. You've got the far extremes on both sides, and then you have more traditional, moderate on both sides. And then you have, people that see, I see a little of what you guys are talking about and I see a little of what you guys are talking about, but they don't, necessarily want to be extreme or violent in the name of anything. But just in combined, with just sad news all around. I was just writing a little script like Cliff Robinson died this weekend. We still don't know the cause of death for him. Only 53 years old. It's just been, it's been bad. There was a 16-year-old kid shot and killed out by the Gateway area in Portland. That barely, registered.
Right.
sadly. And it's just been, boy, it's like wildfires. And, you know, I mean, we had that Chadwick Boseman, you know, a Hollywood actor, but dying of colon cancer. And then you find out he'd been silently battling this for years. It's just like, man, you know, it is hard to get out of this feeling.
We said we wanted to hear what people were feeling or what people were thinking. And I can tell you, as I shared responses and comments, this isn't a great filter system. We're relaying them as we get them. And we hope to be balanced, and I hope to find, because you know there are opinions on both sides of the fence. And again, what is the fence? I'm not quite sure.
We don't know anymore. Right?
But I'll start sharing some of those passionate responses. Desiree Cole says, all the people that are supposed to actually help right now, speaking of the governor, the mayor, the president, she says they're only playing the blame game, and they need to stop acting like children and freaking do something, which is sort of what I was talking about when I said two sides, because never before, right? It is safe to say never before have our national leaders been so opposed to our local leaders and vice versa. And that's, you know, you hear the speak. I mean, obviously the president wants to handle the situation in Portland in a certain way. And we know, just even based on what we saw over the weekend, there are some that totally support that idea. And there are our local leaders who want to completely tell the president to stay out of it and handle it their way. And we know there are people who support them. But it is so, that gap between those two ideas is so far apart. And I can't, you know, did you think 15, 20, 25 years ago that you would hear, you know, your president of the United States basically calling the mayor of your city an idiot, for lack of, you know, a better term, and then vice versa, telling, you know, the mayor of the city telling the president, you know, he has no clue whatsoever. It is so ugly politically right now. And like you said, as I'm talking about all that, we're losing sight of what was supposed to be the original message when all this began back in June.
Nicole Pratt online, good morning to you, says it will take years to recover from this. We've lost longtime businesses indefinitely, shoppers, tax dollars. So there's the huge economic impact. I mean,
Jennifer Nyman. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Jennifer Nyman said on Facebook, as a proud independent, I joke that I detest both sides equally. I'm so saddened and disgusted with what's going on in this city. It is. It's just like a lot of people in the middle, you know, don't support extremism either way, but it's hard to pick a side when both are not putting their best foot forward, you know?
You know, the other thing I think about, and I even hesitate to say it because I know that people hear the word gun and they freak out, either against it, for it, whatever. But I sometimes wonder, like when people come with concealed carry or they have guns out, or God only knows the people who are out there with weapons that nobody knows about, you really do have that moment of, if I feel threatened or if something is going to happen, you have a choice to make. And I have no idea what happened to this poor man who lost his life. But is that like, or we don't know who shot him yet. I know there are lots of things out there, but we're not reporting that because we haven't confirmed it and heard it definitively from police. But I do think when you get weapons involved, not just with this, but tempers are hot. People make mistakes. They misjudge. They, again, you have a split second. If you think that you need to defend yourself or you're angry about something, is that what you do? Is pull out your gun and then what? I mean, you just never know. I think once you have them, then you have a huge responsibility. And there are many responsible gun owners, but I feel like the tension in downtown Portland, I would not want to bring a gun into that.
Yeah. Rod, what are you thinking? How are you doing? Do you kind of tune out? I mean, I just try and tune out on the weekends now for sanity.
Yeah, you know, we live up here in Vancouver, and you know, it's this is a sad statement, but I feel like it's become part of my family's culture to avoid downtown Portland. That's a place you will be willing to detour wide around. But I would like to ask the following question. I would like to, if I were a reporter, what I would like to ask Mayor Wheeler respectfully is, why not a curfew at this point?
It doesn't matter. I mean, we had a curfew early on, remember? It doesn't matter.
Well, no, but a curfew gives you the license, if you will, if I'm correct on this, to remove people who are not paying attention to that curfew. I mean, I would disagree with anybody who would say there's There's one way to stop
It didn't work the last time. And you did it, remember, for several nights.
Well, you stop it the way that it has been stopped throughout the history of our country. And that is law enforcement removing people.
Yeah,
this is just going to keep going. Because you have some of these people, I think, that this is quite frankly how they get their jollies. They're down there vandalizing things is what they enjoy doing.
Yep.
And they're going to keep doing it until somebody says no tolerance.
Well, they're going to keep doing it if there's a curfew or not. I mean, police are completely outnumbered.
Well, a curfew would be a
round up everyone.
Can't you?
Tanya says
we'll
maybe.
Agree to disagree on that.
Tanya says maybe if there wasn't so much media focused attention on people who don't deserve it, they wouldn't keep acting out. When a child is bad, you don't reward them with a cookie. I think these people would still be down there, media attention or not. But Drew, like you were saying, it does take the focus away. Mm-hmm. But when your city is in when it's in an uproar, that does make news.
And I get texts from my family all the time, living in Philadelphia about, hey, what's going on there? Hey, what the heck is happening there in your city? We actually are receiving a lot of texts this morning, more than we normally do, which we love when people text us on that text line. There it is on the screen, 503-226-5088. I'll share a few of them with you right now. This is Taylor in Southwest Portland, which is always nice when you put your name with the text. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to put a name on it. I'm all for the BLM movement, Taylor says, but I'm tired of all the violence and chaos downtown. I miss feeling like I can ride my bike without fear of being attacked by police or counter-protesters. That's Taylor texting this morning from Southwest Portland. This one just came in. I just want to scan it real quickly before I share it. It's a picture for one, and you won't be able to see it if I hold up the picture, but I'm just going to tell you it's a picture from downtown Portland over the weekend, and the caption on this picture says, I work across the street and was able to catch a beautiful moment over the weekend in Portland, a beautiful love thy neighbor moment. The gentleman in the red shirt pulled over to pray with people who were setting up a memorial for the victim Saturday. So a gentleman in a red shirt in this picture pulling over to pray with people who were setting up a memorial for the victim of that downtown Portland shooting. And I can see it myself in this picture. That's exactly we can throw it up there. Thank you. Brian Matthews, our director extraordinaire on Sunrise Extra. There is the picture that this viewer wanted to share and tell us about that moment of prayer this weekend.
Oh, we have, that kind of makes me teary seeing that. It just is, it's awful what is happening right now. I'm curious about Alexa Hartford. If you would, I would love you to respond to this question, because she says curfew is fascism. So Alexa, what would you think that the solution is for people who are getting violent downtown? If curfew isn't the right way, what would you suggest happens? Because I feel like we really do have not enough solutions. We have lots of comments, but I mean, what is the solution? It doesn't seem like anybody has a...
Yeah, they've definitely been ramping up arrests lately. I mean, 29 last night is one of the highest amounts that I have seen. And so it's, a zero tolerance. They try, and in these press releases that they send out, the morning after a lot of these things, as police explain, early on in the evening, they see protesters show up, in full gear, tactical gear almost. And so they write that in there in order to kind of get their point of view across, that these are not peaceful protesters. They are coming ready to have a confrontation with police. And so I think, it's less and less that police are kind of letting people get away with some of this stuff, but they do try and de-escalate the situation, and they'll move back and they won't engage with protesters until things get really out of hand. But 29 arrests last night over on East Burnside. So
did you guys see Paul Brown who comments on Facebook and he says the way we stop is to listen. The message is what? The ideas they want are too vague. Give the sides prime time on TV in Studio One in person with the view of each side. But I think Brenda or Drew, you guys have made the point that the part of the problem is we're not really sure what anybody wants. And if I mean, that's very frustrating that I don't get the feeling that you even have a spokesperson that wants to say, this is what we stand for and let's talk about this. So, yeah, very confusing.
Dan McFarling says, what triggered this problem? In all caps, address the problem of racism.
We have a commenter on the text line saying police already declare protests unlawful and arrest people every night for any infraction or a lack of infraction. This texter says curfew would not do anything besides fuel the flames.
Yeah, that may be true. I may be wrong on that. That may be true.
Prince Schumann says, why do we tolerate out-of-state people coming in and causing issues?
I don't think they're checking ID.
Patriots this weekend. Yeah, I don't know that those people were out of state. I mean, I don't know where they were from.
There's been I mean, we only know when they're arrested. It says, you know, where they have been from.
Correct.
And last night there was I saw a couple people, maybe 2 from out of state, but a lot, you know, from well out of the metro area, Southern Oregon, Eastern Oregon. We've seen I think it was over the weekend, I was looking at some of the arrest hometowns, or, you know, what their driver's license lists as where they live. And there was definitely people from well outside of Oregon here, the vast majority of them from the Portland area.
I just wanted to read this last part of Prince's comment because I thought it was, you know, on point. It says, it's time for real Oregonians to come together, talk, and more importantly, listen. So that was the conclusion of that particular comment.
A couple of different points of view. We have a texter this morning. It looks like MK Ruiz on the text line here says, I'm a weekend Lyft driver. After the parade of trucks went through downtown this weekend, there were several trucks that I witnessed driving back and forth on the Burnside and Morrison bridges. The people in the back of those trucks were shooting paintballs at people downtown. They also were shouting at people, and I saw some were pepper spraying people as they drove by. Now, we reported on this morning. We reported it as bear spray was being sprayed.
You can see it right there, shooting from that truck.
He says they had big canisters. I think it's safe to say they did not come here to show support for Trump. They came here to cause trouble. That's one of our texters. And I'm also going to share a Facebook comment right now from Dawn Baker Lott, who I know watches us quite frequently here on Sunrise Extra. So good morning, Dawn. She says the protests stopped being anything productive the minute one fire was lit, one graffiti was sprayed, one window was broken, one store looted. It should have stopped right then and there, but Brown and Wheeler, says Dawn, thought they were taking the most popular vote by doing nothing at the time. And now we have what we have.
And Chuck Lila Jones says, why are anti-Trump rallies okay, but pro-Trump rallies are not?
It's fair. Yeah. I mean, we've had 90 plus days of protests, and you can count on one hand the amount of times that, you know, a very open, like that you could recognize as a pro-Trump rally has come through town. So it's, you know, not close.
Yeah, I know it's that's a whole other can of worms that we can get into another time about why one side's is okay, the other is not, and whether you believe that or not. It's all subjective. It's all opinion. We have plenty of those coming in this morning. We have another texter. Again, sometimes I get nervous about reading these before I really have a chance to carefully go through them.
Well, it's probably a good idea. Take a moment. We have time.
Okay, I mean, again, these are all the opinions of our viewers. We're going to share as many of them as we can. It doesn't mean we're taking sides here, ladies and gentlemen. This one comes from a texter named Sean in Tualatin. Sean says the civil unrest is due to Ted Wheeler not allowing law enforcement to actually perform their jobs. Ted has blood on his hands at this point, and all he can do is blame Trump. We need a curfew. So to that point, Rod, Sean agrees. We need a curfew and the National Guard to bring back the peace. Arrest anyone who's not complying. And I know that that is actually a viewpoint that a lot of people have. It's also a viewpoint that a lot of people are against. But that's what we're asking for this morning. Just share your thoughts. Tell us how you feel. We don't have solutions, unfortunately, this morning. We just have a lot of unrest.
Right. Samantha says everyone should have a right to their opinions. It's all one-sided, she says, here in Oregon. Well, there certainly is a stark contrast between the metro area, Multnomah County and the surroundings, and then the rest of the state. liberal versus conservative. I mean, to be completely kind of just like overly simplified.
Do you guys think, to me, did anybody really think that this would be going on this long? And I don't mean to downplay what was supposed to be the central point, and that is racial injustice in our country, but just dealing specifically with the violence in downtown. I mean, I'm assuming our leaders at this point are wondering, how long could this go on?
I mean, honestly, I think the only thing that could stop it is, in your department, Rod, is like some bad weather, for real. Pouring rain, that stops a lot of protests that we've seen, happen in the wintertime. And I mean, we've just had glorious weather, and it's, fine to be outside. I mean, that sounds lame, but I think, unless
no, a lot of people are saying
really crack
that.
down, but I think, like, seriously, a rainstorm would help.
We've never
I feel
seen.
like this is different, though.
Yeah, so do I, Brenda. And we've never seen protests to this length, right? So I almost feel like, because I'm hearing what Nina says so often from people, that, hey, wait till the weather turns. Wait till we start getting hit with rain. It'll stop then. I feel like the protesters are hearing that too, and they're basically building up a front right now that says, wait and see.
I feel like it's going to be continuing until the election, and then I think it's going to continue right after the election, because whoever loses, I think there are going to be supporters that then kind of start up a new effort.
Yeah, regardless.
I don't see this ending anytime soon. The question is, how do lawmakers and city officials manage it?
It literally, it hurts my head when I try to think about it, because the solutions are not going to come in a sentence or two. And before this, to me, like the homeless issue in downtown Portland, along those lines, like, such a big issue, such a big problem. We all know it. It doesn't seem like it's getting better. How do we solve it? It's one of those problems like, geez, can it be solved? And you think about it as an individual, sometimes to the point where you just kind of give up thought because it hurts your head. Now we're, for homelessness, that's, back burner now. I haven't thought about that in a long time because we're so concentrated on the protest nightly in downtown Portland. I did feel like, geez, to get a handle on it now would be great, because, like you said, Brenda, we were bound to have protests likely like we've never seen before in November of this year. Those were coming. Even before the BLM movement started at the beginning of the summer. We had protests on the horizon in November based on the year that it is. And now those I feel like are going to be intensified because we've built up to it. And maybe perhaps the worst of the protest is yet to come, which is why I would love to see them, see somebody get a handle on this now, to kind of cool the flames, so to speak, before we get to that November election.
And you know what part of it is that we need to cool ourselves. I mean, clearly city leaders, state leaders don't have a lot of control over anybody. Certainly doesn't feel that way. They have not been able to kind of get things peaceful again. But, maybe just for a moment, each and every one of us has to take a minute and say, okay, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go here. Let me just observe for a second before I jump in. I mean, I don't know what it is. If it's not for those of us who can, take a moment to just de-escalate yourself. Because I really don't know who else I can control but me.
Mark Hefner, I know we have to wrap this up. Mark Hefner does comment this morning, good morning, Mark, and says the ultimate goal, because that's often the question asked, what the heck is the ultimate goal here? The ultimate goal, according to Mark, is to destroy the country's infrastructure. And when I see that and I read that, I think to myself, you know what? Some would hear that and go, good, right? Great. Others would hear that and go, that's awful. And so that maybe that is the ultimate goal, but that doesn't, just because we know a goal, if that is the goal, doesn't help. Because there are some who would say that is exactly what we need to do. And there's others who would say, are you kidding me? It's the last thing we need. We do have to step aside. Man, this is a...
Let's end on... I have one to end on. It's good. Anne-Marie Gorbett from Facebook. She says, I really like this live show. I enjoy the opinions of the newscast. We're just kind of talking out loud with you guys, and this is what makes kind of Sunrise Extra special, because we can live chat with you and just check in with how you're doing, because it has been a hard weekend. All right, all the latest updates, as always, at kgw.com. You guys, we will see you tomorrow. Try and have a good Monday.